Welcome to this week's DAT Trendlines, where we discuss the movements in the market from the previous week and look for tools and tricks and techniques to help us continually improve our business. As well as this week, we are going to talk about that relationship piece that everyone talks about and how they build up relationships. I'm going to show you one of those tools that we've used to build relationships, even going into markets you rarely go into. If you're new here, make sure you hit the subscribe and the like button so you can get alerted when we have new videos coming out. Hello everyone, I'm Bill Hood with the Trucking MBA and the Velocity Group. And at the Velocity Group, we are a safety and compliance company, and we also help people who want to get their own authorities, make sure they do everything right in the right timeline so that they can make sure they save money and are, when they start hauling their first load, they're 100% compliant, as well as are prepared for their first new entrant audit. With the Trucking MBA, our goal is to help take people who have bought trucks or are looking at buying trucks and help turn them into business owners and change their mindset as far as how they look about the industry and help educate them. So today we said we're going to talk about the DAT trend lines for this week and some of the things that we've seen and how we can take a look at them both from historically and what's happening week over week and why we saw some of these changes happening. There's one tool that I've helped owner-operators over the years not only build relationships, but also look for those great opportunities even when there's markets that they don't go into that regularly. So we're going to show you that tool today and what we've done and how we've used it. So let's get started. First, let's go ahead and take a look at this week's trend lines. So this week we saw some positive movement. Most will take a look as we come out of a Labor Day weekend. So we had a holiday week coming into the holiday week. We saw more demand out there for capacity, as well as we saw people prepping for the hurricane and positioning freight within for the hurricane. So if we take a look at, which everybody loves to see, is we saw the van spot rate starting to dip up, as well as the reefer rate starting to dip up a little bit. And really also the continuing encouraging sign is the fact that we are still seeing year over year numbers in the 20+% range, which is telling us that we're still in a very strong market even during the toughest times. But you know, there's one visualization out there that really stands out to people, and that has to do with the what we see in terms of the rate. So we saw with the van rates, we saw an uptick of 6 cents per mile on an average last week, and on the reefer rates, a tick of 8 cents per mile on that. So that's really one of those great indicators where we're seeing things moving in the right direction. Now, I mentioned one of the things that helped drive the movement of the rates was the positioning, getting prepared for a hurricane. And these are the types of things that we should always be making sure that we're paying attention on what's happening, whether it happens to be weather related or some other event that's going on that can drive capacity and take capacity out of certain markets and move it into other markets. One thing as far as to make sure that you're aware of and prepared for, if you are talking about hurricanes and going into hurricane markets, make sure you negotiate ahead of time what your layover and what your detention rates are. So now let's talk about that tool we were talking about on how we can look to build up relationships and track good opportunities that are out there and good potential brokers that you want to work with. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump over to the Trucker's Edge and take a look at some of the tools that we have in there. All right, so what we're going to show here is we're going to show you a tool that we use to help track good loads and be able to pull them in. So in the future, if you're coming into the market, you're able to have a resource of carriers and brokers that you can make phone calls to try to get loads. So what we'll do is the first thing we do is we click in the little, this is Trucker's Edge here. So you click in the little box over here, come up to underneath where it says selected, where you got the drop down, and you hit print detail. And what this will do is this will pull up your little box here that gives you all the details in here. Now, we don't care at this point what we're talking about here about any of this information. What we are going to be talking about here is how do we document the information for future when we want to come back, or also if we booked a load, so that we have information that we can come back and document this. So first thing when I'm talking to somebody is I'm always wanting to find out their name and possibly their extension. So I'm going to put that in here. We're going to put details, 1 and 1, 1 pick, 1 drop. We may say, you know, we may have zip codes. 1 going to 25987. So we may put that information in here. Now, what I'm going to show you up on the screen here, what I do is I use the @ symbol to indicate the initial offer, any offer that the broker has made. I use the pound symbol to indicate any offer that I have made. And then I use the $ as far as the agreed upon. So let's take a look at this here, and let's say the broker initially comes out and offers $1,000. They're the first one to make the offer, so they're going to go down first. Okay, I counter with 1,500 on that. Broker, no, blah blah blah, doesn't really work for me right there. Broker comes back, counters with 1,300, and so now what I did there is I used the 2 @ symbols to indicate that was their second offer. And then I may come back and counter at, let's say, 14, and we agree on 14, or let's say we say we're going to kind of meet in the middle, and we come down as far as 14, so I put the $ there. Now, after I had said 15 and they say, well, you know, I really can't do that. Is there something, you know, can you come back? Can you help out with the rate at all on that? And let's say I was going to counter with 14, then what I would do is I would have put a pound 14, and then if we agreed upon it, 1,400. Now, why do I say that all this information here is important? Well, the reason is it lets us know when we come back and we're looking at these loads later on, if we want to make a phone call on them, is we know that they were started out offering 1,000 and that they ended up at 1,400. So that's a 40% increase. We know that they've got some money and they tend to offer lower than what they're able to go to. The other thing that's great about pulling this in is if we're looking at the same lane and the same load, we can see what the 15-day average is up here on this list, so that we can kind of get an idea where they fall within the 15-day average. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to print this and I'm going to save it as a PDF. So now if I book the load, what I may do is I may come in here and say, I put the date, or I'll just say, you know, this is booked. So I'm going to save it as what we did with booked. But let's say I didn't book it and I want to come back to it later. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to have my region. So we'll say ATL, I might do Chicago, and we'll say 9/18 is what we have here. And then I'll go ahead and save that as a PDF. Now, if you come back and check with next week, we're going to talk about what we do in tracking this. And remember, as you are booking freight and what you're doing, it's the people who take the extra steps. So these are things you can do to take the extra steps, and we're going to show you kind of a spreadsheet and a system we use to start tracking loads and brokers and people that we want to work with. So every time, let's say we book a load going to Atlanta, we saw that one was going in the right market, Taylorville, Illinois. It's a market we want to get back to. We can pick up the phone and we can call Becky at Accent Global and see if she has that Conyers to Taylorville load available, let's say tomorrow, when we might be arriving there. So now what do we do with this and why is this important? Now here's where we're taking that next step. This is where putting the extra effort in comes into play. And next week what I'll do is I'll show you how I use the spreadsheet for this. But what we'll do is we'll take the load and that information, and we'll at another time when we take some time off, maybe it's on the weekends, maybe it's when we've got a layover someplace, we got extra time, is we'll pull up all those loads that we didn't book and we'll start to put them into a spreadsheet. And what I do is I create based on markets. So Nashville, Atlanta, Chicago, Cincinnati, Indianapolis. So markets that you go into where typical larger markets. So we save them by those names. And then what we'll do is we'll pull that information out. Hope you found this helpful and useful. If you do, make sure you smash the like button. Make sure you're following us. Share this with your friends. We'd love to hear your comments on things that you do to help you be more productive and profitable out there. Thanks a lot.